You missed a deadline, and you replay it in your head at 2 a.m. for a week straight. One failure, one mistake. And your brain treats it like the whole verdict on who you are. A rejected job application sits in your inbox, unread twice, then read 4 more times. A skipped workout turns into, I always give up on everything. One bad pitch meeting turns into, I'm not cut out for this at all. Now picture a hunter-gatherer walking home from a hunt, empty-handed, again. For 99% of human history, that wasn't a tragedy. That was Tuesday. So how did people fail constantly and somehow not spiral the way you do over one bad email? Let's start with exactly how often ancient hunts actually failed. In the 1980s, anthropologists Kim Hill and Magdalena Hurtado spent years living with the Aché of Paraguay. They tracked every single hunting trip men went on day after day. Published in their research, the numbers were staggering. On any given day, hunters came home with nothing roughly 9 times out of 10. Not occasionally, constantly. As the expected normal outcome, researcher Frank Marlowe found nearly identical numbers studying the Hadza of Tanzania. Big game hunts especially succeeded only a handful of days each month. For context, that's worse odds than a coin flip 10 times over. And yet hunters went out again the very next morning. Not out of stubborn personal grit. It was simply what everyone did, every single day, without exception. The culture itself absorbed the odds, so no individual had to carry them alone. But here's what's fascinating. Nobody treated an empty-handed hunter as a failure as a person. They treated it as Tuesday's weather. Sometimes there's meat, sometimes there isn't. So failing constantly just didn't matter to them at all? Not quite. It mattered enormously. Food mattered. Hunger was real. The stakes were survival, not a performance review. But the outcome of one hunt never became a verdict on the hunter's worth. Children grew up watching grown men fail at hunting over and over, long before they ever tried themselves. Failure wasn't a rare emergency to hide. It was the default text they read every single day. By the time a boy picked up his own spear, he'd already seen 100 failed hunts up close. In 1969, anthropologist Richard Lee published an essay describing something strange he witnessed. He'd given the Juhuansi a large, valuable ox as a Christmas gift. He expected gratitude. Instead, people mocked the ox mercilessly. "This bag of bones," one man said, "you call this meat?" Confused, Lee asked a friend why everyone was insulting his generous gift. The answer became one of anthropology's most famous quotes. "When a young man kills much meat, he comes to think of himself as a chief," his friend explained. "We can't accept this, so we always speak of his meat as worthless. This way we cool his heart." The insults weren't cruelty, they were maintenance. The group was deliberately protecting a successful hunter from believing his own hype. Anthropologists later found this same custom across many different hunter-gatherer societies, not just one group. It wasn't a quirky local joke. It was a widespread solution to the exact same human problem. And here's the part that should really land. If success didn't get to inflate your identity, failure didn't get to crush it either. The tribe applied the exact same logic in both directions, on purpose. Your worth as a person and your outcome on any single day were kept in 2 completely separate boxes. A hunter who came home empty-handed wasn't showered with pity either. The group simply shared what anyone else had caught that day without ceremony. No dramatic sympathy, no consolation speech, just dinner together as usual. Modern culture never learned that separation. Today, one person's win gets broadcast, filtered, and celebrated for everyone to see. One person's failure usually gets hidden, alone, with no one there to cool it either way. Researcher Brené Brown at the University of Houston spent decades studying exactly why. She found people consistently confuse 2 very different feelings. Guilt sounds like, "I made a mistake." Shame sounds like, "I am a mistake." One is about behavior. The other is about identity. Guilt can motivate repair. Shame just makes people want to hide. Psychologist Carol Dweck at Stanford found the same split forming in children as young as 5. She praised some kids for being smart, others for working hard. Then she gave every child a puzzle designed to be impossible. Kids praised for being smart quit almost immediately, visibly ashamed. In Dweck's data, many of them went on to lie about their scores to other children afterward. Kids praised for effort kept trying, treating the failure as information, not a verdict. Dweck ran this same experiment with thousands of children across many schools. The pattern held every single time. The exact words adults used had already taught children which box failure belonged in. So is the fix just praising effort instead of talent? Not quite. That's part of it. But it's missing what the Juhuanzi actually had that we don't. A whole community constantly and deliberately separating a person's worth from their outcome, out loud, together. Modern failure usually happens alone in silence, graded by a single number, a report card, a performance review, a star rating. One number standing in for an entire person, with no one there to cool your heart in either direction. Ancient humans failed far more often than you do. 9 out of 10 hunts. Most days for their entire lives. And most of them never once felt like a failure. Not because they succeeded less painfully, because their people never let one outcome become the whole verdict. Ancient failure had a container built around it. Modern failure mostly doesn't. That difference, not the failure rate, is the actual gap. We didn't get better at succeeding. We just stopped protecting each other from what happens when we don't.